Before we start, we should apologize for not starting on time. It was because of a technical glitch that the media team had, so that sorted out. I would like to welcome all of you, those of you who are physically here in the Little Theatre, our colleagues who are on Zoom, and those of us who are joining us on Chanko TV Facebook page, because we're streaming live as well. I would like to welcome you to the first Faculty of Humanities seminar this academic year. The Faculty of Humanities seminar series is an event where we share research. Academic members of staff share research by making presentations, but also we have conversations with people from the general public, people who are doing something remarkable out there. We have a conversation with such people so that we can get to know what they do, but mainly also to talk about some topical issues that are prevailing at the moment in the country. And today we're privileged to have Mr. Innocent Magambi. He is former CEO of an organization called There Is Hope. This is an organization that helps refugees and underprivileged Malawians to have a better life by offering them trainings, offering them scholarships, and any help of that nature. Today I'm talking to Mr. Magambi, or rather call you Innocent. I'm talking to Innocent about his book titled Refugee For Life. We're talking about this book in the context of what is happening in the country at the moment. We are aware that the Malawi government did issue a notice for all refugees plying their trade, or rather living outside the Dzaleka refugee camp, to return to Dzaleka refugee camp. So our talk of the book Refugee for Life, which chronicles Innocent's life, is going to be framed within that context. So Innocent, welcome to Chancellor College, particularly welcome to the University of Malawi.
Thank you for the invitation.
All right. As a way of beginning our discussion, Innocent, we would like to, let me take you to the title of your book, right? So let's just begin by talking about the title of your book. How does this title describe your life today? I'm also interested in the subtitle of the book. You say, My Journey Across Africa to Find a Place Called Home. My question is, have you found home yet? Let's begin from there.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you for the audience here physically, but also those who are watching via Zoom. I know there are many friends in the US and Canada and Europe who are watching, so I'm grateful. The question about the title, yes, the title still describes me today, because, I mean, when I was putting, my thoughts into writing the book, I thought the title would be The Professional Refugee. That was what I was thinking, because I felt like after being a refugee for 27 years, I qualify to have a title, whether it's, whatever it is. But then Refugee for Life resonated strongly, because although I'm no longer a refugee, the experience that I have lived and I have received through my life as a refugee will never leave me. Therefore, I will always be a refugee. With regards to the subtitle, yes, I have found a place called home, and that place is Malawi. Because I was born in the refugee camp in the Congo. I left when I was 16. I went to Tanzania I lived there for 5 years. I went to Zambia. I lived there for 1.5 years. And I have been in Malawi for close to 18 years. So if you look at my journey, you know, Burundi, I've been to Burundi maybe for 6 months. That was the 3 months when I was 13, and a few weeks here and there when I've visited. So when I'm in Burundi, I feel like I'm a stranger. But when I'm in Malawi, I'm a stranger, but at home. I don't know the best way to describe that.
All right, thank you very much. That's pretty interesting, and I think my next question follows up on that, because I was about to ask you, how do you describe yourself? Who are you? Having lived your life across several countries, you were born in a country that is not your home. You did attempt to go back to Burundi at some point, but that visit was cut short by civil war, and you had to run away. At some point, of course, you did go back to Burundi to process the papers and stuff like that. I think we'll come back to that at some point. When you visited Burundi to get a passport, and you did get a passport, and you were very happy at that particular moment, was the happiness because now you were legally identified, or was the happiness because now you were set free to travel across borders without somebody, or without sneaking around? We'll talk about sneaking around later on.
Those are quite tough questions. I think I was happy because for the first time in my life, I could travel without fear of being caught because of not having papers. I wish I knew when were the passports introduced into Africa, because I don't think when, you know, Chewa people moved from Congo to Malawi, I don't think they needed to have passports or any type of documentation, the same as Yaos from, you know, Mozambique and other tribes. Now, when you are a refugee, you have nowhere to be identified, and you have to change identity. Everyone sees an opportunity, like arresting you, they see an opportunity to getting something out of you. So for the first time, I didn't have to pretend that I'm Malawian or Tanzanian, because when I traveled to Burundi, you know, from here, from Lilongwe to the border, I acted as a Malawian. And the moment I crossed to the other side, because of Swahili, I pretended to be Tanzanian. So I had to make sure that everything that I say in Kiswahili, I pronounce it in a way that Tanzanians pronounce Kiswahili. And so from Tanzania, when I got to Burundi, then I switched. I was a Burundian. So in my life, I had to learn different languages because it's an asset. It's like a way to get around. So getting a passport gave me that freedom to say, hey, I'm this person and I can, you know, contribute in any conversation without fear of someone asking, by the way, what are your papers?
You've referred to a moment in your book where you just said you had to pretend. I'll not use the word pretend. I'll use the word perform. You had to perform an identity to the extent that when I was reading that part, it reminded me that probably all these national identities are just mere performances. That you have to perform in a particular way to be accepted in a particular space. Anyway, let's move on to something else. When I read your story, there are several personalities that I find to be very integral to your narrative. And the first one that struck me the very first time I read the book was your father, right? a businessman, a hardworking person, a compassionate person. And when I look at you and I read your life at the moment, there's this connection I make between you, what you've become today, and your father. Literally, like you've risen from the ruins of the life of your father to become somebody who is an important person in the lives of many people. How do you remember your father, or how does your father influence your life today?
Yeah, my father really impacted my life, and most of who I am today I attribute it to him, because I used to ask so many questions, and if you remember in my story, he was absent in the first I would say 6-7 years of my life because he was battling mental health, but then when he got healed and came back to Congo, we were so close. So I used to go with him when he was buying fish and drying them and buying goat, and so I used to accompany him, and I learned a lot from him. And so he taught me about honesty and the idea of helping people. At the time I did not enjoy it because we'll be going this direction, and then when we meet a woman carrying cassava on her head, my dad would say, hey, take the load from this woman, help her until you get home, and then you catch up with me. So I'm like, okay, we are going this direction, you are telling me to go back. And I like that. And sometimes I would just just disappear and just not follow him, and then in the evening he would say, why didn't you come back? I'm like, it was so heavy, I had to to take some breaks, and by the time I got home I was so tired I couldn't come. But to him, the fact that I did not go with him but I helped this woman was a deal done. But then, although I didn't like it, that is what I have become. So it comes almost all the time to say you have something to do, even if you don't give money, and you can still help someone without really forgetting yourself. So that is an aspect that I have grown with, and compassion, and the sense of looking beyond your own needs, but also being able to see other people's needs.
Besides your father, I also see 3 individuals in your life, as narrated in the book. I'm hesitant to call them women, because one of them was not yet a woman by the time you interacted with them. But I'm talking about your mother, your wife, Florissa, and your daughter, Muiza, who passed on when she was about 2 years old. Apart from your father, I also see your narrative really revolving around these individuals. Once in a while, you meet this person here, 6-7 pages later, they appear again, and I find your narrative really revolving around these women as well. Can we go through the impact that these 3 have had in your life?
My mother first. I don't remember being a son to my mother when I was young, because my parents divorced when I was very, very little, and my mom left and became a mother to other children. So there was a vacuum, and it was really, it's sometimes when I think about it I get very, very sad, because people, the culture where we don't tell children what is going on in the family, and then we expect them to pick it up when they grow, it's not really helpful. So whenever I met people who knew the story, knew how my dad and mom, separated, dependent who I was talking to. So if I talked to those who were on the side of my dad, they'll talk bad about my mom, and those were many. And many times I felt like my mom abandoned me. But when I was growing up, I learned that she was, a victim of a wrong teaching, which says, if you are a man, you have 2 wives, and then you become a Christian, you need to leave behind, like you need to just kind of forget your second wife and just focus on the first wife. So my mom was just abandoned that way, and she felt left, ignored, unwanted, and then she found love elsewhere. And that, it was really sad because I didn't know what it feels to have a mother at home. So when I was growing up, I really wanted to do something for my mom to kind of, help her forget the pain that she went through. Unfortunately, she died when I was about 16 years old. So I didn't get the chance of doing what I thought I could do to wipe the tears. So that's the first mom whom I blamed for my for lack of a proper parenting, but then she was a victim of something that was bigger than me. My wife, she she's an angel because
you had to smile. I know.
Yes,
I know.
I mean, I need to choose my words because she's watching. So after the interview, I need to go back to her. So I need to make sure that, first of all, she showed me another type of world that I never experienced. First of all, people ask me, why did you marry Mzungu? Well, my answer is, I did not marry a Mzungu. I married a woman. And that woman happened to be a Mzungu. She was my best friend, and that's what I married. And in the beginning, my fear was because of the stories that we heard in the store, back in the village. If Azungus, when they're eating and you come uninvited, they'll give you newspaper to read what they eat. And I'm like, that's not what we do in Africa, therefore I cannot marry. But when she came, she really changed my world, and she helped me to think beyond what I knew. And she's in touch with the reality. I'm more of a visionary, and together we really worked well, because when I'm lost in dreaming, she brings me back into the reality. And when she can't see, far, I help her. I become her eyes, and together we make a plan on how to get there. Because sometimes it's difficult when you are a visionary. You want to go fast, and you can get lost. But then when you are someone who's practical, you help visionary achieve the vision very well. So she is really very, big part of my what I can call my success.
Sorry to cut it short. I read her contribution towards the end of the book, the deeper stories. I could see she was really holding back. There are so many things that I read between the lines in that part. I wish she was here also to be asked questions, but we'll talk about that with her later.
Thank you. I mean, she's a poet, so she knows how to craft her words. My daughter Mwisa, she changed my life as well, because, growing up, I was affected by the divorce of my parents. Therefore, when I think about getting married, I always thought that I need to make sure that I'm sure that the woman I'm going to get married to, she is the right one, so that when life becomes difficult, I will know without doubt that this is my wife and I need to make it work no matter what. So I expected that God will audibly speak to me to say, this is the girl. And that was my expectation. That's what I wanted God to say, so that when I'm getting married, I'm sure, because I didn't want my children to go through what I went through. But God never spoke, and he brought this lady who looked totally different from what I had described as my future wife. And I wanted someone who, has been a refugee. She's not. I wanted someone, who has been an orphan, who has gone through tough life. She has nothing of those qualifications. I wanted someone who can sing, because I love music. She loved music, but she couldn't sing. So I was really afraid, but so I prayed a lot. And I remember one time I had a dream, and the dream was, someone was bringing a baby. And in the dream, the voice, the person who was carrying the baby said, "This is your daughter." So in the dream, I was so curious. I wanted to see who does she look like, so I can tell who will be the mother. But the more I was curious, the person, was going back with the baby, and I found myself almost falling off the bed. And that dream came 3 times. So I'm like, God, don't play with me. I want to know who is my wife, not who is my first child. So when the child came, I knew that my first child would be a girl. I knew that she would be beautiful, and that's why we named her Ngwira, because in Kirundi it means beautiful. And but she was severely disabled. She was born with cleft lip and cleft palate. So for those who may not know those words, I learned them when she came. It's when the lips are split and the palate as well is split. Not only that, she couldn't sleep, she couldn't swallow, she had so many complications. And we spent the first she lived for 20 months. It was very, very painful. So I learned a lot. Again, I thought, by being a refugee for 27 years, I have done my part of suffering, but I didn't know that I will learn another part of suffering from my daughter. And that girl really changed our lives. My wife, through the life of this girl, she started a company called Kibebe. She designs things that help children, and today the company is employing over 40 people. So there's a good that has come out of it, but our lives have changed a lot. And when I see someone with ability, like, my heart just connects, and I see beyond what other people can see.
What you've just said speaks to something that was going on in my mind to do with pain. And again, referring to a book, I describe it as a book of pain and loss, right? But pain and loss as lessons, right? And you say somewhere that you talk about pain as a form of education, that when you share pain, that brings hope. When sometimes also our pain can benefit others. And I'm glad you just touched on that, on how this painful moment that was your experience with somebody you waited for and loved to be with so much, but you couldn't, how that did change your perception of pain, and how you can appropriate pain to the good of humanity. Well, okay, let's see. We've been talking about pain, we've been talking about sadness, we've been talking about sorrow, but one aspect of this book is that it has what I would describe as comic relief moments, right? There are a number of moments from you lying on the boat, the performance you put up. That was quite a performance. The performance you put up to cross borders between Malawi, Tanzania and Burundi. And but one incident that always comes up in my mind, and I usually go back to read that part of the story, is when you thought you were so clever, after being given the go-ahead by the UNHCR that you can travel to Tanzania, join family, you were given money, and you thought you were very clever, and you wanted to have a bit of fun in Lusaka. But things did happen to you.
Yes. I'm wondering, why did you pick that story?
It picked me.
Yes. So, I mean, I was born in the Congo. Congolese, you know, they can go hungry. You know, they could go to bed empty stomach, but they need to have something to wear. Like the fashion is really a big deal in Congo. So I had all this time I'd lived in the refugee camp in Meheba, which is very, very far for those who know Zambia. And, you know, Lusaka and Meheba, they are quite far apart. So I didn't want just to go to another refugee camp without really, you know, having what they call in Chichewa kuzipe pesa. So I needed to, because I had money, I felt like I'm a little boss, and so I wanted to, you know, just test life in the city. So I went to Lusaka, and, you know, I hired a photographer, and, you know, to take pictures, and I would just go and stand by a posh car, put my hand there, and next to these tall buildings in Lusaka. And the idea was, when I get to the refugee camp in Malawi, I need to show them where I was. I didn't want people to think that I was in the refugee camp. I just wanted them to think that I was in the city, and all those cars, you know, were my friends' cars, and just to get that kind of dignity. But then, when I was done, and, you know, I'm walking, going to the bus stage, you know, a guy just came and walked and said in Chiwemba to say, you know, I need help. We are from the village. We came here. I'm like, okay, can you speak in English? Because ndinowakunja, you know, just speak English. And the little English, you know, if you read my story, I learned the English when I was selling blankets and spoons and on the streets of Meheba. So I had to go and ask a friend, you know, how do you say blanket? How do you say 20 kwacha? How do you say? And I would write it in Kiswahili the whole night. I would memorize it. In the morning, I had my vocabulary. So that vocabulary had grown, that I wanted this guy to just think that I don't speak Chiwemba, you know. And he's like, okay, fair enough. And he's like, I'm coming from the village. I came to the bank to get money to go and pay the teachers, but I can't see anybody that can help me to protect my car while I load the bags of money. So would you help me? I'm like, yeah, I'm an honest man. I can help you. So he went and he says, okay, this is my car, and your duty is just to look at this car. I'll be coming from this corridor with bags of money. And he's like, before we do that, we need to check how much money do you have so that you don't steal from me. I'm like, don't worry. So I had, I think, $100. I had put it, you know, under the socks here, and I pulled it out and I showed him, and he says, okay, can you put this money in the envelope? So I put the money in the envelope, he closes it, and I put it back. So I'm there, waiting for him, helping this poor villager, and he never came back. So I'm like, okay, I need to help this man before I go. So I started looking for him, and something in my spirit just say, can you put back your money? When I checked, the envelope was still sealed the same way. When I opened, there was no money. There were newspapers. And I thought, like, okay, this must be a dream. So I got those, you know, newspapers. I tried to kind of just do like that and see nothing. And I was like, okay, something has happened. So I didn't know whether to cry, to scream, and I was just confused. I think I just froze and I didn't know what to do. However, a guy who was with me in the refugee camp in Meheba, and he owed me money actually, but he left Meheba earlier and came. I was doing business in Lusaka. When he heard that situation has happened to me, he said, don't worry, my young brother, come and I will take care of you. I mean, I was only 18. And he looked after me. He helped me to heal from the loss, and he got, you know, connections and transport for free to get me to Mpulungu, and from Mpulungu I got to Kigoma, to Tanzania. So anyway, it was quite funny. Every time I go to Lusaka, I go to Freedom Way and just stand where this guy just told me to stand, and, you know, walk through the corridors. And yeah, just, it reminded me that there are so many clever people here, so we need to be careful.
Wow, a lesson well learned, I hope. Okay, I also find interesting in your book the question of morality versus survival. There are a number of incidents in the book that you resorted to deception and corruption just to get your way. Those events, when I look at you today, when I see what you do today, I keep on asking myself, they raise very crucial moral dilemmas. I want you to comment on that. An innocent who is at the same time deceptive.
Yes, a very good deceiver. I mean, writing my story, those are some of the painful parts that I was not proud of, and I'm not proud of, but I wrote it, I mean, because I just want to be vulnerable. And this presents life, because there are so many things that sometimes we do or we are forced to do, and we look at, okay, we say, let's just do it because it's the only way that we have. But looking back, I had an opportunity to correct those mistakes, but I did not do it. So I'm stuck because I still regret that sometimes I lied, sometimes I did something that, you know, was not supposed to do, but there was ways to deal with what I was dealing with without lying. So, and again, this is just to encourage people that are going through tough situations where they have to take decisions that they're not proud of. I think it's very important to look for plan B and try to, you know, to do something that your heart says yes to. Even in my work today, you know, there are ways and there are things that come my way that, you know, you just feel like, why can't I do this to get around? But now that I'm mature, I'm able to say, no matter what happens, this is where I'm going. There are times, you know, people call me in Burundi and say, we hear that you have over 40 employees who work for your organization. You help students, you know, Malawians, refugees go to university, you know, learn skills, and you give capitals to other people, but we are suffering. Our children need to go to school, your cousins, your nephews. What are you doing? And sometimes you look at, okay, what do I do here? Do I steal money? Do I go to the accountant and say, hey, this is the boss speaking. Get money, $2,000, I need it, and know how to explain it into your books? Or do I say to my family that the only way for me to help you is through what I'm able to generate, not through what the organization is raising, because the organization does not raise money for my family. It raises money for the people that I stand for. And, you know, I have learned to be able to say, I hear your pain, but I'm not able to help you. Now, it's up to the people to continue loving me and trusting what I'm saying that is true, or just say, Innocent, he's just, you know, a nonsense person. So I would rather tell the truth than bend the truth to, you know, for people to like me. So that's my principle, which I never had that time?
Life never gave you that chance to do that, probably, at that moment.
One can say so, but I think I still had the opportunity to choose what is right and wrong, because yes, we can have ways to justify our wrongdoings, but that does not make that wrongdoing right. Therefore, we should continue to really try hard, accept the consequences of telling the truth. I mean, people working in government can do the same. I was coming from Salima, and I stopped at a place where they sell a lot of rice, and I was buying the rice, and the women, what they do, they put, good-looking rice on top, and, the not so good rice down. So I went, and this woman was busy putting the rice in the sack, and I noticed that there's change of, quality. I'm like, why did you do that? She's like, oh, okay, maybe this one. So I went to 3 people, it was the same. So I'm like, okay, I'm tired now. Do I go to Lilongwe without rice, or do I need to buy rice? And one of them said, that one is the best rice. What you see on top is the same as what is at the bottom. So the person who was trying to trick me is showing me someone who is honest. So I went to the honest person and I bought from her. Now the difference between the two is, one knows that, whether I sell or not, whether I make a profit or not, I'll not compromise on my morality. The other one says, provided that I get something out of someone's pocket, I'll do anything. So when I asked the one who was trying to, to trick me, the answer was, you people, you do it in government. What about us? That was her answer. So I felt shocked. I felt accused. Because, again, I tried with my best chichewa, and she thought I was working for government. So I'm like, okay. And so I felt accused, and that's what it is. So every time in our lives, we have the choice to do what is right, even if we are influenced and everything else suggests otherwise.
I do hear you, but of course something still bothers me in my head, that if you hadn't lied on that boat across to Tanzania that night, if you didn't lie across the borders to go to Burundi, if you didn't lie across the passages, would I have been talking to Innocent today? Or probably he would have died. Those are the moral questions I have, moral dilemmas I have, but you don't have to speak to that. I don't want you to. Let's move on. One of the things that the organization that you laid for, was it 15 years?
Yes, 15 years.
There's hope. One of the major things it does is to give scholarships to people, the refugees and underprivileged Malawians. And that comes from your conviction that if you give people an education and a skill, then you're making the world better. And also somewhere in the book, you talk about our learned men and women who should end the civil wars, who should end the conflicts, who should end the corruption. When I read those parts, I asked myself, I looked at my country, and I see that the people who are in the forefront bringing this country down are people like me, who've gone to school, who've got the best degrees. So what kind of education are you talking about? Because from where I'm sitting, I don't think the education we have now is helping. What kind of, maybe we need a different kind of education. Do you think if those people get the scholarships and come here and they get their degrees, are they going to change this country? Are they going to change the world?
Thanks for the question. Education, I believe, to me, it helps to expand someone's ability to think. And that education is not only learned in school, the way we know it. It can be learned elsewhere. I learned a lot from my daughter. I learned a lot from people that, I worked with. But also education, going to school, there is a level of ignorance that it helps because you are exposed to the world through the books, through the people that you interact. And now when we are supporting students, as the organization, we don't ask them to pay back to There Is Hope. We ask them to pay it forward. There's what we call, continuing a chain of hope. I am where I am today not because I'm clever. It's because someone trusted me. Malawians, the church, Capital City Baptist Church in Lilongwe, they trusted me and they invested in me. They sent me to Assemblies of God School of Theology. That was my first time to be in an environment that I'm not surrounded by refugees. I was the minority there. Now, I'm moving from a place where I'm used to interacting with people who have similar problems. And now, I'm interacting with people who don't even know what it feels to be a refugee. I'm learning from them. I'm learning what it means to be a Tumbuka from the north. I'm interacting. My horizons is changing. And someone, I feel like my heart says, I need to start something that will help other people so that every refugee should experience life outside of a refugee camp. So I didn't go to Assemblies of God School of Theology to prepare to get a job. It was a place where I met my job. So again, learning through the books, writing proposals, projects and stuff, I was exposed. I was no longer someone who thinks in the confine of the refugee camp. I was thinking now I know, what it means to be a good citizen. So I think, to me, you need to go to school, prepare people, because the world is changing. Nobody, unless you really do miracles, nobody will just spot you and say, hey, this person does not know how to read and write, and let's pick him or her and make him a president. You have to have a college degree. But that does not mean that, your morality is in the right place. And I'm sure if we need change, it will come from people who are educated as well. So if, Chakwera Chilima Alliance is to change things, it's because, they want to reverse what educated people have not done in terms of development and have done in terms of corruption. So again, education gives us that mindset that is open, but also we need to watch and work on our morality as well.
I hope Chakwera and Chilima are watching. Now that you've mentioned leadership, president, and all, there is this constant yearning in your book, in your narrative. You yearn to be somebody for your country. You want to be president at some point for your country. You want to go back to Burundi and be a president because you feel like the people who lead the country do not really do this good job of uniting the factions, Hutus and Tutsis, who by that time were in conflict. I was wondering. I was wondering how much longer I have to wait before being invited to Burundi to meet the president in his palace. Okay, but my question is, how active at the moment are you in the affairs of Burundi, your native country? What connection is there? You've already told us that my very first question was about home, and you said, okay, you found home and this is home, but there should still be a connection that you have with Burundi. How involved are you in the affairs of Burundi at the moment?
What if I become president in Malawi?
Well, you still invite me to the State House.
I mean, if you ask me, I would say I have leadership dreams. And those dreams are not only limited to Burundi, although currently that's a place where, you know, if they ask me who are you, I would say I'm Burundian, and, you know, I'll be eligible to run for any seat. I would love that opportunity to open here in Malawi. I would love one day that Malawi opens up and say, you know, you don't have to be, you know, a Malawi born to be accepted in this nation. You know, I would love that opportunity. And actually, I know much of politics and where things happens in the country, more in Malawi than in my country. You know, I need to be educated. So, I really don't know. But as a visionary, I see something that I cannot describe. I don't know how that will happen and when, which to many people may sound, you know, illogical, but that's how I've operated. Because when I didn't have a bank account, when I couldn't even buy toothpaste for myself, I had a dream and I saw that I was changing, not I, but God was changing lives of many through me. And that happened. So there are a lot that I've seen which came as a dream, came as a passion. And I have no doubt to believe that whether in Burundi, whether in Malawi, whether on the continent, God still wants to use me in a certain way, in a capacity of leadership, but I can't describe how and when.
Whatever the case, I'll be waiting for my invitation to State House.
Thank you. You will. Absolutely.
Okay. There's a passage that I'd like to read from your book. I think it's page 118, I think, where you're describing refugees, how refugees are confined to one space, and how we always try to push them there all the time. I think you've said this on 2 or 3 occasions. There's page 46, you say the same thing, but this is on page 118, where you say, I often compare a refugee to a match. A match is expected to be in a matchbox. Anyone who discovers a match outside the matchbox will try to put it back in. In the same way, a refugee is expected to be in a refugee camp. Anyone who discovers a refugee outside the camp will try to put him back in. There is little freedom of movement. I would like us to you know where I'm taking this to. I would like us to reflect on that passage from your book in the context of what happened recently, where the Malawi government issued a directive that all refugees outside the camp should return to Dzaleka. I would like us to reflect on that.
Wow. It's something that makes me sad. Refugees are victims of something that they were not part of. They did not cause. And yet, especially in Africa, if I look at Tanzania, Malawi, especially in Malawi, 1989, when Malawi had 1 million plus of refugees from Mozambique, the laws were drafted and they restricted movement of refugees. Of course, they had fear that, okay, because refugees at that time, they were, about 14% of the population. But that fear continued until now. If Malawian population is 18 million, and refugees are close to 50,000, it's about 0.2% of the population of Malawi. But people who came to Malawi in 1994, and they had the first child in the refugee camp in Dzaleka, that child is 27 years old today. And yet, she cannot vote. She cannot apply for a job and get it, be employed. She has no right to leave Dzaleka and come to Chanko. So, where do you expect that person to be? Some of them, they have children, and very soon they'll have grandchildren. They don't know any other country apart from Malawi. But because their parents came without passports, therefore, they should be in the refugee camp. I'm pleased for the previous governments that did not enforce those laws. And I'm sad for this government that is trying to force those discriminatory laws. Now my question is, Tonse Alliance says there are so many laws that are outdated, need to change for development to be seen in Malawi. And yet, they are enforcing one of those. I wish I could have a conversation with people in the leadership just to understand their way of reasoning. Where do they put human rights? Even the Constitution of Malawi, recently someone gave me a copy, and I checked chapter 4, I don't know whether you call them verses or whatever, 20, section 20, it talks about non-discrimination of any kind. So I wish we knew, I know why. Where is that coming from? Is it fear? What kind of fear? Is there someone behind it? Who is it, and what are they looking for? I mean, when you look at history of the world, refugees have done quite a lot. If you are in tech and you Google tech invention in the US, they are led by refugees, including the one who made Apple, Steve Jobs. He's a son of a refugee. And there's so many people. One of the people who were in Dzaleka went to Canada. Before she finished her university, she was hired by Google because of the intellectual capabilities. Now, the moment these kids leave Malawi, they go to Canada, within 2 years, they are given Canadian citizenship. But when they are here, they can be here for 28 years. Before they leave Dzaleka to go to Lilongwe, they need a permission to leave the camp. That's exactly what I'm saying. And if you ask, Honorable Minister of Homeland Security or, of Minister of Communication, Kospe Kazako will say refugees, they belong to the refugee camp. Therefore, if you see them elsewhere, they need to go, and that's what we're enforcing. It is sad, and I wish I could reason with Malawians to stand up. I mean, we have seen people rising and fighting injustice, going onto the streets. I'm waiting for Malawians to stand up and say, these are our own. Because if you understand that Congolese should never have been refugees, when you look at the resources that they have. And Malawi should know that better, because we have MDF supporting to protect the people of the Congo. So they know more than what common Malawians know, or common people in the world know, because they have all those secrets. They know who is behind, which company is behind this, and what they're getting out of it. So that compassion should even help us to do more.
Well, from what I get from what you said, I think you seem to be saying that we have laws that are unfair at the moment, because I was thinking, yes, we have these laws that are unfair, and some people have to reinforce those laws. Probably what we need to be thinking about is, how do we get the balance between following the law and protecting refugees' livelihoods, right? And like you said, rightly, some of these refugees have actually become an integral part of the communities in which they live. They have become important members of the communities in which they live. And there's a government that wants to enforce the law, but there's also the livelihoods of the... Maybe we need to have a conversation, how best can we strike that balance between enforcing the law and protecting people's livelihoods. I'm also thinking here that we know many people, many refugees that are applying trade or that are living amongst the communities are people that live well with the communities. But there have been also instances elsewhere where some have taken advantage of such leeway to now begin to propagate certain things that may not be progressive, right? That's why I'm asking, how best do we strike the balance between enforcing the law and protecting refugees' livelihoods?
Yeah, so I believe in dialogue, and sometimes things go wrong when someone just thinks that they know best and they impose. In so doing, you start now correcting the mistakes. But if you start by finding the right way to do things in collaboration, it really helps, because everywhere refugees are, if there are refugees in Zomba, they will have a committee. And the committee, if there is a funeral, people will contribute. If someone is broke, you just go to your friend and say, hey, I want to do business. And you start, from a shop, getting some money or goods to a shop, like you collect and you start your business. And you're accountable to everyone who gave you something. And that's why their businesses kind of, thrive, because you know that you are doing business because someone else gave you the capital. And if someone else comes and wants to a capital, you need also to be responsible and providing that the capital. So if something happens in Zomba that involves a refugee, their fellow refugees are the best investigators, and they can tell you that, okay, this is what is happening, and they can tell you whether someone is a refugee or is not. So that happens everywhere. Now, when you suspect something that is happening, or someone is trying to misuse the generosity of Malawians and start other things, like just involve refugees, you'll be able to catch those people. I'll be the first person, because I take Malawi as home. And that's why, when I'm talking about citizenship, I will not wait until Malawi gives me Malawi passport for me to feel like, okay, now I can start becoming a Malawian. No. The moment that I feel like this is home, I need to invest. Because that's the first thing that I need to do. There are so many people who feel like they're Malawians, but they are, as you said, they're ripping off the country. We saw it, with Cashgate. Many people died in hospitals. Were they Malawians? Absolutely. Did they have Malawi at heart? They did not have. And yet, someone is a foreigner, has Malawi at heart, and then you said, okay, you don't qualify. We need to rethink. So it's a matter of involving and being able to listen. Unfortunately, one of the former presidents said that one of the things that he regrets was to have bad counselors.
Are you doing anything about this? Are you intending to start a conversation with authorities? Because you've said, and I repeat, what seems to be your problem is that we have laws that are unfair, laws that are unjust, right? And you said you're waiting for Malawians to rise up and the way they do in the face of oppression. But what are you doing? What is, for example, there is Hope doing? What are these, you've talked about communities, refugee committees. What are we doing to move authorities to begin to have a conversation about this and probably initiate a movement that is going to change things for the better? Because if we just sit like this, what we'll be told, and which is true, is that there's a law, and that law must be followed. So we need to move to make people understand, see that the law is not just. What are we doing? What are you doing? Is there anything the refugee community is doing to move authorities to begin to see or reflect on this particular law we think is unjust?
Yes, I came to Chanko. That's one of the things that I'm doing, because I know that I'm speaking to authorities. I mean, you must be proud to be a professor at this university, because...
I'm very proud, actually.
Yeah, absolutely, because, I don't know the statistics, what it says about, how many people, walk through these doors, end up, holding or the positions of leadership in this nation, in different, in the whole aspect of life of the country. So to have an opportunity to come and speak to the leaders of now, it's a huge privilege. So I'm really grateful to you and to the whole university for inviting me. That's one. Number two, I have written a few papers. Some have been published, others, have not. But, the media houses will decide which word, depending where they're standing. But also, I am mobilizing the church. I'm mobilizing the church because World Refugee Day is celebrated every 20th of June. And the World's Evangelical Alliance decided to celebrate World Refugee Sundays. So they say that every Sunday before the 20th and Sunday after the 20th, churches should remember the issues of refugees, because Jesus Christ was one of them. And so in the West, they have been doing that, and that has really, has helped the church to be even involved in helping refugees, welcoming refugees. So now I'm writing to the Body of Christ in Malawi to say, 20th of June is around the corner. It's a Sunday. Can we remember refugees? I'm not just talking about Malawi, I'm talking refugees worldwide, and pray for refugees, countries that are producing refugees, countries that are hosting refugees, without forgetting refugees that we have here. And once we pray, then we can also lobby with government, and we can stand with the refugees. I'm not calling people to stand and oppose the government, but I want a dialogue. And that cannot happen with us only talking. We need allies, because the power of allies is what changes things. So we need allies. We need people who can, talk, who can comment, who can reason, because laws are made by people. They're not imposed on us, and we have power to change those laws.
Thank you very much. Before I invite questions from the audience, is there anything that you would like to say now without me asking you?
Yes, I mean, it's still on the same aspect of laws and how they play in Malawi. I mean, one reason that I love Malawi is because there is mature democracy. And every time when I'm talking to my fellow Malawians, I always want to remind them that sometimes you can forget what you have because you envy what you don't have. But what every Malawian should be proud of is the level of maturity of democracy that you have. There isn't any country that I can name in Africa where the president or the ruling party does not influence judiciary, police, and the army. There isn't. But in Malawi, everything is separated. You know, the ruling party would say this, and the army would say we stand for the people and for the law of Malawi. And judiciary would do the same. I have never seen such a thing. So one, I want Malawians to be proud of what they have and fight for it. Fight for it. Never allow those things to mix up, because once you lose it, oh man, you lose the precious gift that you have. And now that you have it, how do you use it? You know, we need to do more in fighting corruption. Fighting corruption is not done just because, you know, you are fighting people who are involved in corruption. You need also to make sure that moments of giving that corruption, you know, you stop it from there. So there is a lot that we can do, but corruption has really destroyed this nation, and with that we don't see the beauty of democracy that we have. So I really encourage especially educated people to really do something. It's upon each one of us to fight corruption so that we can enjoy the fruit of the mature democracy that we have. But also, please don't forget to be allies of the voiceless. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Innocent. We give her, yeah, I thought so. Okay, at the moment, in the interest of time, I think we'll restrict questions to how many? 5? We'll get questions from the audience here, but also those who are with us on Zoom. They can post their questions on the chat, and they'll be passed on to Innocent. Let's begin with questions from the auditorium. Do we have a mic that side?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me address you as Dean. Thank you very much, Dean of Humanities, for organizing this. Thank you very much, Innocent, for the great presentation. One thing, one is a comment and another one is a question, if I'm allowed. The comment is that, what I've picked is that as much as change is inevitable, the type of change is by choice, and that change is influenced by our morality. How are we? That's what influences that. Now, coming to this question, refugees, I think there's a transition from being a refugee to asylum seeker and probably becoming assimilated into the community. Don't you think the best way to address it, because these are more of legal matters, have you considered engaging legal fraternities to address the issue that is at hand about the refugees, because if then they're involved, then they can help change the policies that are involved in legal transition of persons. Yeah, because even in my research when I was working in Rwanda, the refugees in Rwanda and those in Kenya, those are some of the things I considered. Thank you very much.
Okay, can we have the, is this the second question? And third question, so that you can have 3 questions to chew at the same time.
Okay. The perception of refugees in Malawi is not very good. People believe that refugees and nationals are fighting for resources. And what incentive would Malawians have to go out in the streets to protest against the relocation of refugees to the refugee camps?
All right, thank you, Dean, for organizing this lecture, and thank you, Innocent, for the great presentation. Your last statement, Innocent, you said that I think it was a call, kind of, that maybe people should come forth and be the voice of the voiceless. I would want to assume that the voiceless should be refugees in this context. How would you want people to understand the plight of the refugees if the refugees are not telling their stories? Like, this is the first time that I've heard about, maybe I've sampled some of the stories that you've shared, that maybe there've been people that have grown up and maybe they are more than 28 years that are still staying in Nzareka, and they're not being allowed to go out or to participate in any type of issues in Malawi, but the Nzareka is in Malawi and everything else. So these are the stories that maybe we need to be taught. And also, if we are to amplify those voices, we need to have all that kind of narratives told and known out there. So how would we be allies, or how would we ally with you to amplify those kind of voices? Thank you.
All right, those 3 questions, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you so much for the comment, but also the questions. The first question was, have we involved legal people to support in fighting for the rights of refugees in Malawi? I'm sure we are. I mean, yes and no. Yes, because there are some refugees who stood up and they went to court to seek for injunction, because some of them, I mean, many of them, they go to Malawian companies, manufacturing companies, and they get goods and they sell. So they have a relationship where they sell and they pay back to the companies and get more goods. Now, when the government said in 2 weeks you need to vacate, the question was, who will pay the debts? And they went to court to, in Blantyre. So that was one. And but we need, as you said, we need to do more in terms of getting more legal people to support. But to me, I feel like some part of me feels ashamed that we need to go to court to be able to talk about something that is obvious. But unfortunately, I guess that's the way. But again, it requires money. So we need to maybe do it more and find a way of amplifying that voice. The second question was, what will motivate Malawians to be allies of refugees and yet they are fighting for the resources? Unfortunately, that is a wider perception that many people have, those who feel like refugees should be discriminated. But I'm not an economist. but I started doing business when I was 16. Not because I wanted to, but because that was life. Because I became, I separated with, from my family when I was 16, and I was in Zambia. They were in Congo. Then they went to Tanzania, and I learned life hard way. So instead of going to school, I was trading, selling almost anything. If you had shoes that you needed to sell, this is the guy that you had to talk to. And in so doing, I learned how to speak with a client and make the client buy something from you. It's a skill that you can't just learn from school. You need to do it. And if you learn it the hard way, you even learn it better. So when a refugee is doing their business, they know that the only thing that they have is their business, and therefore they need to be extra good with their clients. And the pricing also is another thing. And so all those skills need to be learned and shared. But to say that refugees are fighting for the resources, or you hear those people who say they're taking away the business from Malawians. I mean, is that true? 2%. They're not even in manufacturing. Some people are like, okay, they're taking, they'll take over the country, the economy of the country. Wow, someone who is doing retail, that they're getting money or the katundu from Malawian companies, they are able to take, it's just fear that is not justified. So I think the beauty of business is when there is competition, but also when you can learn from each other instead of hating others. So if you know that my friend is doing well in this business, the best is not to kick him or her away, is to sit down and say, hey, can we chat? How can I be better in what I'm doing? I think that is the best approach, because it's a privilege for me to teach a Malawian, because I know he'll be my ally. Every refugee that you have seen who is doing business, for them to be able to do what they are doing, they must have at least an immigration officer that they are paying school fees for their children. They must have someone in authority. They must have either a policeman who is their friend. When there is a danger, they just go and say, hey, can you speak Chichewa with your friend and advocate for me? So having someone that you want to teach or collaborate, it works to the advantage of refugees. That's how I see it. And the third question was, how do we become their allies if we don't know their stories? Excellent question. We need to tell stories of refugees. By the way, that's why I saw that, when I saw that There Is Hope has grown, and I have trained, people to take over from me, Malawians to take over from me, I said, okay, now the next thing that I need to do is exactly what you said, sir, to amplify the voices of refugees. So I started Inua Consulting so that I can be of help to fellow refugees who are still struggling from what I struggled with 10 years ago, but also to be able to explain to those who don't know what it means to be a refugee, what it is, so that the more you understand, the more you know what action to take. There's so many ways that you can support a refugee, and it doesn't have to be on the street, but hearing the story, amplifying the story, and start a conversation that will lead into the integration. So when people come from Burundi, Rwanda, or Congo, they are asylum seekers. They go through interview with the immigration, they tell their story, and immigration will determine whether to allow them to be refugees, to grant them the rights of a refugee in the country. Now, in many other countries, once you are a refugee, your story changes. You can have access, you can settle, you can do anything, you can live elsewhere, but not in Malawi yet, and not in Tanzania yet. But in Rwanda, yes, you can, and many other African countries. So, and then once you are a refugee, then you can be integrated into the community. But we're still waiting. So far, on the government records, only 2 refugees have been integrated. One, he was a doctor, medical doctor. Someone high profile got sick, was taken to the hospital, and this guy operated a miracle on this gentleman. When President Bakili Muluzi went to see the sick person said, "This guy changed my life." And Bakili Muluzi was like, "Okay, who is this guy?" Talks to him, and the Chichewa is coming with another color. He's like, "Okay, who are you?" "I'm a refugee." "Really?" "Yes." "What can I do for you?" He had the choice to say, "I need a car, I need money, I need a position," but he says, "I need nationality." So sometimes, you have something, being born a Malawian, sometimes you take it for granted, but someone is dying to have what you have. And Bakir was like, "That's all that you need?" He says, "Yes." Done. So that was the first refugee to be naturalized. The second is a young girl. Many of you might know the story. Mireille. She's now a doctor. Do you know the story in the audience? She got 6 points, and she was denied to go to China because she was a refugee. And Zodiac went to Zaleka, interviewed her, aired the interview on the radio, and asked the Malawians, "What do you think? This child came to Malawi as a refugee, and she worked so hard, and she got 6 points. She is eligible to go to China for education, but government says she's a refugee, does not qualify." And the people of Malawi said she should go to China, and that's how she got Malawian citizenship. She went to China, learned. 5 years later, she came and started working in Malawi as a doctor. So we're waiting for number 2, number 3, number 4. Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Zai. Do you have questions from the audience on Zoom? No questions. All right, let's take 2 questions from the audience. That will be it. I can see Dr. Ntenje here. People in this side are in other lands. I can't see them. I can only see masks. Any question from this side? Any other question? Okay. All right. Dr. Ntenje, then there's one hand at the back. Those 2 questions will be the last question, then we'll close.
All right. Thank you very much, Innocent, for sharing your very powerful story, and I'm looking forward to reading the book. I just wanted to know the ways in which your faith, because I get the sense that you have a very close relationship with God. And I just wanted to know how the ways in which your faith has sustained you all throughout your experience.
We have a question on Zoom.
Okay, I'll just to add on what Dr. Ntenje said, I'll put it differently. Do you still quarrel with your God? Because what I read in this book, you always quarrel with God. God, why this, why that? Question from Zoom.
I'll quickly read this one before coming to him. Is there any platform yet that exists to help promote interactions between Malawians and refugees so that the coming generations can understand each other better and build a better Malawi?
I heard you saying that you feel sad that this government is enforcing those what you call discriminatory laws. Okay. Actually, I also feel sad that there are other governments that did not enforce those laws. Maybe that's what has led us to this argument now. So I wanted just to put a question on that. Don't you think so that Malawi government has been lenient enough with the refugees in this country?
Those three are our last question. After he takes them, then we'll close the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question from both doctor and doctor there. What part? Faith in my life. I mean, faith has been everything in my life because without faith, so when I believe that people who have comfort in their lives, they're likely not to cling on God. 83 or 84% of people in need of aid, they are people of faith. They have some types of faith. So the faith it's not just like Christianity or, Islam, any type of faith. Like they have something to cling on for a change of their situation. And then those who are more comfortable, sometimes they're like, okay, what's God? They don't even pray for the food, but if you know faith, you say thank you for what you have received. So faith has really, really helped me to, to believe in the change, and that's why I named the organization There Is Hope, which means as long as you are still breathing, don't give up on hope. And doctor said, did you still quarrel with God? Not as much as I used to. Because there are so many questions, like, when you hear that your dad, had so much and he had to run away, and within 2 weeks he was working for people who were beneath his workers back home. You meet someone who used to work for your dad and he tells you stories, and you don't wear proper shoes until you are 13 years old. You have reason. And then someone says, let's go to church and pray, God is good. You have to ask, is that true? Why? Prove. So through life I've come to understand that we don't expect good all the time, and because God does not wish, or he allows bad thing to happen to us, although he's not the one who is causing it. And the question of, is there a platform where locals and Malawian and refugees can interact to understand each other better? Not yet, but very soon with Inua page, we want to, apart from, asking the church to pray and get involved with the lives of refugees, not just in Malawi, but globally, we also want to be, getting stories and allow people to interact, because without talking to each other, you will not understand who, the stories, and you will not be able to support each other. And I like your question, very, very good that you're saying, don't you think that we should blame governments that does not enforce the bad laws instead of blaming the government that is enforcing the bad laws? Basically what I'm saying is, it has been really great. I still on the opinion that I'm grateful to governments that did not enforce the bad laws, because they are not, yes, Malawi is a sovereign country, but there are some obligations, international obligations that we need to meet. Because unless Malawi is an island, does not need anybody else, therefore we can live and survive if we close all the borders. We don't need anything from outside, and but if we know that we need other countries, we need to travel, we need, we still have an obligation to be to do things that are internationally accepted. So refugees, they are governed, there are some laws, international laws that help each country to abide to those laws. So the country can choose to take everything or, take some of those laws, which Malawi decided to say, okay, in everything that governs refugees, we will not subscribe to 9 laws, which I don't have them handy, but we will not allow refugees to move up and down. We will not, so there was so many restrictions, and it's quite difficult, I'm telling you, to enforce those kind of laws and still be accepted internationally. But there is a way to change all those, because there are some countries that have relaxed their laws and they accept refugees, and people are free, they can move. In Zambia, you can do business if you have a refugee status. But it is impossible to do that, to have freedom, if you are still an asylum seeker, because the country has not accepted you as a refugee, has not granted you an asylum. So even Malawi can do the same, can say, okay, those who have refugee status, they have ABCD as privileges, and those who are still waiting to be accepted as refugees, they should wait in the refugee camp. That is acceptable. Thank you.
I thought on the issue of the platform where Malawi's refugees could meet to interact, I thought you would say something about the Tumaini Festival, where the public is. Yeah, I was saying Tumaini Festival as a platform where Malawians in general interact with refugees, all the things that it happens in the refugee camp.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, I forgot. Thank you for bringing that up, because it's an opportunity for Malawians. Today, if you want to go and interview some people in the refugee camp, as if you're a journalist, you need permission from Homeland Security. And depending who you are, that permission can take long. If you want to go and visit the refugee camp, you need permission. Like, it's an area that is closed, yes, for protection of refugees, but also to make sure that you control the flow of people. But at the same time, there's something that are missing. If there is an opportunity for you to go free, like so, during the Tumaini Festival, that's the time now that you can go without any need for permission. So you have people with, cameras, you can do anything and you can interact, and that is one of the ways. Actually, it's coming up in November, so I'd really encourage people to be able to go, and those who cannot go, now that we have Zoom, you can still be part of the festival without having to go. But I would really invite people to come, because there are foods from Somalia, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, and many other cultures. So it's a mixture, and it's a nice place to be. So please come through. But we'll be creating those spaces so that people are able to share stories and conversations.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we stop tonight. Thank you, Innocent, for coming here to share your story. But most importantly, thank you very much for the conversation, because I think for us to move forward, we need to start having these honest conversations about each other, honest conversations about our experiences. It's only when we make decisions or laws that are based on mutual understanding that we can be assured of moving together as humanity. So thank you so much for being part of this particular conversation. And thank you to the audience, both physical and virtual, for being with us up to this time. I know we delayed, we didn't start on time, but you still waited for us. Innocent's book, Refugee For Life, is on sale at the back. It's going at 12,000, and he's around to autograph your book. He autographed mine a couple of years ago. We've been trying to have this conversation since 2017, but things kept coming in the way, but I'm glad that we finally had the conversation. Otherwise, I wish you a very good night and thank you for coming. See you next month when we have another seminar in this space. Thank you. There are no drinks because the truck that sells drinks didn't pass here. But next time we'll have drinks.